I grew up believing that love was something you earned by staying quiet and useful. In our house, silence was safer than honesty, and obedience was mistaken for virtue. My mother used to say she loved us both equally, but even as a child, I could feel the difference. My brother was loud, careless, and endlessly forgiven. I was careful, responsible, and invisible. When our father died, everything changed. I was still young, but grief pushed me into adulthood overnight. While my brother drowned his pain in rebellion, I buried mine under duty. I cooked, cleaned, paid bills, and held my mother together when she thought she was falling apart. I postponed my education, turned down opportunities, and gave every spare moment to our family. No one asked me to. I did it because I believed love meant sacrifice. My brother never learned that lesson. He failed exams, quit jobs, wasted money, and returned home with excuses instead of apologies. Yet every time he messed up, my mother rushed to protect him. He's sensitive, she would say. He needs more support. I nodded even when it hurt because someone had to be strong. For years I convinced myself that fairness would come with time. That one day, my mother would see everything I had given up for her. I never wanted praise, just acknowledgement, just proof that I mattered too. The truth came to me by accident. One afternoon, an aunt mentioned the will casually, as if she were talking about the weather. "Your mother arranged everything already," she said. "The house, the land, the savings, all in your brother's name." I laughed at first. I had to. The words didn't fit the life I had lived. I thought she must be mistaken, but the look on her face, pity mixed with surprise, told me everything. That night I couldn't sleep. Every memory replayed itself differently, as if the past had been lying to me all along. Every sacrifice, every late night, every tear I swallowed suddenly felt meaningless. I confronted my mother the next morning. My voice shook, but I didn't accuse her. I only asked one question: why? She didn't meet my eyes. After a long pause, she said softly, "You're strong. You'll be fine. Your brother needs it more." In that moment, something inside me cracked, not loudly, but permanently. I realized that love in this house had never been about fairness. It had always been about preference. The house felt different after that conversation. The walls that once echoed with routine now pressed in on me like witnesses to a crime no one would confess. My mother moved around me carefully, as if silence could erase what had been said. My brother, on the other hand, didn't bother pretending. He walked through the house with a new confidence, his footsteps heavier, his voice louder. He laughed on the phone, made plans, talked about his future, without once glancing in my direction. It was as if my sacrifices had already been erased, replaced by the ink of a signature on a piece of paper. I finally confronted him in the kitchen. I asked if he knew about the will. He smiled slow, satisfied, unashamed. "Of course," he said. "It makes sense. I'm the son." That was it. No gratitude, no guilt, just entitlement served without apology. Anger rose in my chest, but it didn't explode. Instead, it settled into something heavier clarity. I realized then that this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a decision, a choice made again and again over the years, quietly favoring him while I carried the weight. I went to my mother one last time. I told her I wasn't asking for money or property. I only wanted to be seen. I wanted her to acknowledge the years I had given, the dreams I had delayed, the loyalty I had never questioned. She sighed, tired, as if I were asking for too much. "Families don't keep score," she said. "You shouldn't be so emotional." Those words hurt more than the will itself, because they turned my pain into a flaw, my hurt into an inconvenience. That night, I packed my bags. Each folded shirt felt like closing a chapter. Each item I left behind reminded me of how little of this house had ever truly belonged to me. My brother didn't notice. My mother stood in the doorway, her face unreadable, offering no reason for me to stay. At the door I paused, not because I was unsure, but because part of me hoped she would stop me. She didn't. "I'm cutting ties," I said quietly, not out of anger, but out of survival. She nodded, as if this too was something she expected me to endure. When I stepped outside, the air felt colder, sharper. I had no plan, no safety net, no inheritance waiting for me. All I had was the terrifying freedom of choosing myself for the first time. As I walked away, I understood something painful and final. Blood can bind you, but it cannot force you to stay where you are unseen. Freedom did not feel heroic at first. It felt empty. The nights were the hardest, lying awake in unfamiliar rooms, listening to the silence, wondering if I had made a mistake by walking away from the only family I had ever known. There were moments when hunger, fear, and doubt sat beside me like unwanted companions, but even in those moments, I knew one thing: the pain I felt now was honest. I took whatever work I could find. Long hours, little pay, no praise. I cleaned offices before sunrise, served customers who never learned my name, and collapsed into bed each night with aching hands. Some days, exhaustion blurred into despair. Other days, I felt something new: pride. Every coin I earned was mine. Every step forward belonged to me alone. I learned to survive quietly, the same way I always had. But this time, survival led somewhere. I enrolled in evening classes, studied by dim light, and taught myself skills no one had ever encouraged me to develop. Failure came often. I was rejected, overlooked, and underestimated more times than I could count. Yet each setback hardened me instead of breaking me. Meanwhile, news from home reached me in fragments. My brother spent freely, confident the inheritance would never end. He changed jobs the way he changed moods. He mistook luck for talent and entitlement for success. My mother continued to protect him, excusing his recklessness as ambition. I stopped asking about them. Time did what distance could not. It softened the sharpest edges of my anger. I didn't forget the betrayal, but I refused to let it define me. I learned how to be alone without feeling abandoned. I built friendships rooted in respect, not obligation. For the first time, I was seen for who I was, not for what I provided. Years passed quietly but steadily. My work began to speak for itself. Opportunities replaced survival. Stability replaced fear. I moved into a small place of my own, modest but peaceful. Each piece of furniture felt like a declaration: I did this. One evening, as I looked around my home, I realized something profound. I was no longer waiting for an apology. I no longer needed validation from a woman who measured love by weakness, or a brother who mistook favoritism for worth. I had risen without revenge, without inheritance, without anyone's permission. The ashes of my past no longer burned me. They became the soil from which I grew. I didn't plan the reunion. Life simply folded our paths back together the way it often does when lessons are overdue. A message arrived one evening, short, hesitant, unfamiliar in its humility. My mother wanted to see me. She said it was important. When I arrived, time had stripped the house of its confidence. The walls were the same, but the certainty was gone. The inheritance that once felt invincible had disappeared, piece by careless piece. My brother sat in the corner, older, restless, empty-handed. For the first time, he looked unsure. My mother cried when she saw me. She apologized in fragments, her words heavy with regret. She said she had been afraid I would leave her alone, that she believed I was strong enough to survive without help. She admitted, too late, that strength had been her excuse, not her justification. I listened without interruption. Not because the apology healed everything, but because I no longer needed to fight to be heard. My brother spoke next. He asked for help, not with pride, not with entitlement, but with desperation. The same hands that once received everything now reached out with nothing to offer in return. I felt no anger, no triumph, just clarity. I already gave you my share, I said gently, years of it. The words landed quietly, but they carried weight. He had no response. That was my revenge, not refusal fueled by bitterness, but boundaries built from self-respect. I didn't gloat. I didn't remind them of every sacrifice. I didn't need to. Life had already done that for me. I forgave my mother, though forgiveness didn't mean return. I wished them peace, but I chose distance. Love, I had learned, should never require erasing yourself. When I left that day, the door closed behind me with finality, not anger, not grief, but acceptance. I walked back into a life I had created, one that didn't depend on anyone's approval or inheritance. I understood then that revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. It lives in stability after chaos. In dignity after betrayal, in choosing yourself when no one else did. I cut all ties not to punish them, but to save myself. And in doing so, I inherited something far greater than property, my peace,